Hey there, it is 2020, which means I have successfully fulfilled my promise to not make any videos about the upcoming November US presidential election until 2020, the actual year it is being held. So let's dive in. I want to keep this big picture and avoid falling into the minutiae of the daily scandals for as long as is humanly possible. Today, I want to talk about Trump Derangement Syndrome, which I believe to be a vital factor in the 2020 elections and also a dominating dynamic of the entire Trump presidency. Trump Derangement Syndrome, or TDS for short, is a much talked about concept in right-wing marketing materials. The Fox News types think it's hilarious. They argue that the Democrats are obsessed with hating on Trump, and this keeps them from getting anything done or seeing all the great things Republicans imagine Trump is doing for this country. The talk radio people are right to point out that Trump Derangement Syndrome is driving the country crazy, but they're missing one very important thing about this phenomenon. Trump Derangement Syndrome is completely rational. The fact that Donald Trump is president should leave you deranged. Even his supporters acknowledge that Trump is probably the most disgusting man elected president in over a century. The most fervent MAGA hat-wearing evangelical Christian Republican in the country wouldn't dream of leaving his daughter alone with Donald Trump for an hour. Nor would he seriously consider going into business with the president. He's a proven liar. Yet somehow these folks seem to think that having one of the most hated presidents in U.S. history is a success story. It's really not. Republicans will often point out that while Trump's job approval rating is consistently low, it's not any lower than the worst parts of Obama's first term, and Obama got reelected. But this leaves out half of the data. Most polling companies collect a disapproval rating as well as an approval rating. Out of the 200-odd weeks in Barack Obama's first term, there were 16 weeks, some sequential, some not, when his job disapproval hit 50% or higher. Donald Trump's disapproval rating only touched 50% once. That's because it hasn't fallen below 50% since early 2017. The Real Clear Politics average of polls has had him hovering around a 55% disapproval rating ever since then. Gallup, the polling organization whose numbers I used for Obama, often has Trump's disapproval spiking to 60%. This is the reality of Trump Derangement Syndrome. It's not just Democrats or establishment media figures. A consistent majority of Americans hate Donald Trump with a passion. And not just Trump. Everything else he stands for and represents is getting swept up in that same wave of hatred. Billionaires, big business, the Republican Party, hypocritical Christians who still support Trump, all of them are getting caught up in this anti-Trump maelstrom. That's a real problem for me because my politics are traditionally conservative, or at least what the Europeans would call neoliberal. Capitalism is very important to me, and that's something else that is being tarnished by Donald Trump. In June of 2019, the New York Times ran one of its most darkly hilarious news stories ever. The progressive utopia that is the city and state of New York runs in part due to taxes from the activity of New York City real estate developers. These businessmen were used to a certain level of protection from legislators. But on June 11th, the New York state government enacted sweeping new protections for tenants. The real estate developers were outraged, but mostly just shocked to find that nobody cared about their arguments anymore. They had been ambushed by Trump Derangement Syndrome. The thing is, I find the real estate developers' arguments pretty convincing. Most economists agree that the reason New York housing prices are so high is because of the elevated levels of tenant protection and rent control that already existed in New York City. Over the past year, I've met not one, but two African-American women whose families' attempt to build wealth was derailed by tenants that essentially stole their properties, leading to foreclosure. If you can't make money doing real estate, people won't do real estate. I'm pretty sure that this new law will make the New York housing crisis even worse. But I don't care. Because these real estate developers are the type of person that made Donald Trump president and continue to support him today. So I want them to suffer. This is Trump Derangement Syndrome, and well over half the country has it. I've been beating this drum for a while now. In November of 2016, I found myself eating dinner with a bunch of Republican-supporting top 10% types. None of them liked Trump, of course, but they were eager to see what a unified Republican government would come up with. I told them they were nuts. By electing Trump, we had ripped the guardrails off of American democracy. Electing Trump virtually guaranteed an outsized reaction from the left that would tear through a lot of the things these Republicans thought they could count on. Even if, or maybe especially if Trump wins in 2020, all the richest parts of this country are going to get a lot more hostile to the rich. I had another conversation with a Trump supporter late last year. I told him that I thought the most likely result for 2021 was a Sanders-Warren presidency. Not guaranteed, of course, but surprisingly possible. He told me that he had too much faith in America to believe that that could happen. I was too polite to say it at the time, but an America that elects Donald Trump doesn't deserve much faith at all. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and come back next time for a more hopeful take on 2020. I'm calling it Ronald Reagan versus the Joker. Thanks.